listeners, thanks for joining and listening. This is the second part of the conversation with Justin Wenck about reading a book.
Wherever we're at, we ultimately want more, and it's not a bad thing. It's just part of the natural of being curious, of wanting to explore, wanting to create, wanting to have experiences and just to share and to love and to, yeah, because if we didn't want more, then why be born, right? It's like, why come out of the womb? Because we had everything that we needed in the womb. If could have just stayed there forever, but it's like, well, it's cramped. There's no more experience. Eventually, you've done it all inside there, and it's like time to come out.
That's brought me back to when I had, again, a long time ago, I was in this student group, and then they said, "What's actually your purpose in the life?" And then I said, at that time, I said, "I'm a messenger. So my life it's like all the experience I have to spread out. I think that's my purpose." And I said that maybe with 20 something in my age, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is, right? To do, you experience this, and then you remember people, men are coming in this midlife crisis where they're thinking back, oh no, I have this age and I did all this. So what's the rest of my life, right? And then to say, okay, to overcome that, yeah, why not going back and write down what you experienced, and that might or for sure help others, right? And there's so many people who wrote book or have written books when they were successful, right? When they built a multi-million-dollar company or whatever, then they wrote it down. But maybe to write something, he said, "Oh, I experienced that. I overcome so many challenges," and then that explain that.
Yeah.
Or describe it, right? And or also describe the process to go to yourself. And if you all can motivate the people that they love them more self, that's it's actually a good thing. Because if you know yourself, if you find out who you are and what you don't like, what you like, and be yourself, then that's a good thing, because then you're on the way to for happiness and for peace and freedom for yourself.
Yeah. And, kind of along the lines of just, peace and joy there. I think we need more of stuff created that is just for to bring sheer delight, entertainment, joy, where just someone reads it, watches it, experiences it, and go like, this is just great. It just feels great. Because that puts us in such a powerful state where we're inspired. I think, to, like you said, be more whoever we are, just like, well, this is just authentic expression of like amazingness, great story, great being, great emotion. I want to be like that, or I am like that, or, it's kind of whatever we experience is sort of a mirror of who we are, what we're capable of. And so I think anytime that we experience something that's just like, well, I don't know, I don't know if you've done drugs, but they say that, the reason drugs work is because we have those receptors and we can naturally create those chemicals. Like if we couldn't create, the molecules that create hallucinogenic properties internally, we wouldn't have the receptors. And so then when you take a hallucinogen, you wouldn't, go see trippy stuff. So it's really like, something external just is lighting something up that we already ultimately have within us anyway. And so when we see something that's joyous, we like, oh man, that was so cool. Like I guess there's this movie Godzilla -1 that is from Japan recently. It's in theaters and it only cost like $13 million to make, which apparently is like peanuts for most movies, but people are like loving it because it's just great storytelling and people are like, get Godzilla out of here. We want to know more about these people and their lives. And which I think gets to the core of like what we really care about, which is other people, which is really just a reflection of us and what we're capable of or what we want or who we want to become. And yeah, so the baby, oh baby, I love the way you call me baby. I think that can be great too. But everything has to be a challenge.
Yeah, but now I have to follow you. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about this Godzilla movie. What is like entertainment, like action and whatever? How many people get killed? How many car get destroyed? How many buildings falling each other? And then to a song like what you described, what he's in love and he's just describing his feeling, right?
Mhm.
So you see the spectrum that people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was in the 50s. Like the 50s wasn't, if I see in the history of music, it was like maybe the beginning of rock and roll, the influence of all this music. I mean, it was the time of Elvis Presley and all the other guys, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, music was simple and it came from real instruments because that's
Hmm.
what changed from 50s to now, right?
There was no
And
auto tune. There was no drum
yeah,
machine.
exactly. I mean, and so simple things where the people get entertained. And now the opposite. We need $130 million to create a movie, whatever, having a big ape running around and destroy everything, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It is not even the ape. Godzilla was a dinosaur, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing, right?
Well, I think it's
I mean,
what's kind of what I'm thinking is that you're talking about the 50s and this Godzilla movie, it actually takes place like I think like right after World War II, which was, and in some ways probably that era of the 50s was a response to the horrors of World War II, where I think it's as people and I think as a human society culture, I don't think we ever want to be too stuck in any one thing. And so I think there is just this like, hey, we want the spectrum, and there's also a little bit of we can choose where we want to reside, a little bit more often than not. It's like, there's going to be tragedy and there's also going to be joyous things and all of it in between. But we could also we can consciously choose like where we want to move the needle towards. And so maybe we do want to be get a little bit more into the baby, oh baby, you're my baby, oh baby, if you want. But sometimes you're just like, oh, it's been because what happened after the 50s, right? The tone started to shift, right? And then
yes, start the
and
60s,
right,
right?
yeah, where it's like, oh my gosh, this is just so surface level and all that.
But this is also again brings me back to our topic, um, the book writing. So who's the audience, right? Who you want to be your audience? I mean, and I mean that's also when they do a movie. If you compare to this, who's the audience? I mean, in Godzilla and all this is like science fiction. It doesn't matter in which time it plays, but it's kind of science fiction, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, so, and it's action, it's horror, and it's lots of demolition and whatever. But so that's then the audience, the people who like that. And then if you write a book and say, I write a book now for which audience? I mean, this is for me wrong, but this is something what then the marketing people can do. But if
Well,
you go back to why you write a book, then this is what I want to do, and then you can market now wherever, right? I mean,
so this is like another part of the of purpose of book writing and almost anything is there's that side of, well, yeah, how does it look to you? What's part, because there's like, if it truly is just for you and you only need just one printed copy for you to have, and it doesn't matter if any, like, that's one thing. But if it's like, no, there's something where I would like there to be, 100,000 copies out there and published, and I would like there to be marketing people, that's a different goal or whatever. And so then, yeah, you might have to start considering like, well, what is the audience and how do you describe it? How do you get get people to know this is the thing to pick off of the shelf at the whatever? Um, and so not that anything is better or worse, but it just sort of like changed like, well, what steps are you going to eventually take in the process? And there's also a thing like if you just do the one copy, you could then always go like, yeah, now that I have this one copy, now I want to go figure out how do I become you know, world New York Times best-selling whatever on every bookshelf in the world, and then I'll take those steps if I want to. Or maybe it's like I don't, you know, or if that's the thing from the beginning, then
Yeah, no,
yeah.
but come back to music, right? If
All right.
if 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 someone writes a song, your baby, baby, I love to call me baby, right? Did you think this guy, when he wrote the song, he was thinking about how much millions of records he gonna sell? No, he just wrote it in the moment of creativity, right? And then that's the point. I mean, for me, at least for me, I can't
Yeah.
speak to other people who are creators doing writing a book, because that's our topic again today. I mean, but to say I want to write this down because I want to write it down, and then I don't think about, I mean, I think about the audience, and the audience would be the people who like the story, who get inspired by the story. So I have already the audience. And if I write it in one language, I know also then that's the audience, because that's the people who have to understand this language, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, but I don't want to, in this moment of creativity, I don't want to think about who's my market, what I'd have to do to make it fit for them. I want to do it out of my pure creativity and what I wanted to tell in that moment. So that's how I work and how I be creative. And then if that's done, then you give it to an editor, and then they're gonna start to adjust a bit, of course. And then that's it. I mean, but I don't want to have this goal, or I want to be a best-selling author. I just want to do this for me, and I know
Yeah.
other people will read it because they might find something interesting. And this is all what I don't want to think too far ahead, right? I just want to be in this moment of creativity. So that's again
Yeah.
how I do creative things. So that's just me, right? Other work
Yeah.
different.
Because I think the kind of what's come up for me is there's a little bit of it's what's the scope of your dream? Because there can just be the dream in and of the moment, and then there can be maybe what could be considered like a lifetime dream. And I recently, you know the comedian Dave Chappelle?
I
You heard
heard
of him?
about, yeah.
He's probably considered one of the top five comedians of all time at this point, with his uh just his way to take on big topics and have interesting insights, and his crafting of a joke a start to finish. He has a new special called out. They just came out a couple months ago. It's called Dreamer. I think it's called Dreamer or
Okay.
Dreamers. And uh and in it he kind of talks about that, you know, and he's on a big stage, and he's sort of kind of, you know, more close to probably the end of his career than the beginning. And he's talking about he talks about how all of you here, that you are part of my dream. When I was a teenager, being up here telling jokes, this was my dream, was to be doing it, and now you are all a part of it. And then he kind of tells like another joke about something where some rapper comes up and is like, you weren't in my video. What video? You know, and he's like, I'm part of this guy's dream. This guy's having his own. So um so when we're talking about the baby, baby, oh baby, so either the person who wrote the song had the dream that this is going to be a giant hit that's going to be 80 years after I'm gone, people are still going to be listening, or the person who produced it, somebody had the dream that this is going to be a big thing. And so I think this is a little bit of do you want to be the dreamer, or do you want to be the person who can end up in somebody else's dream? And not that anything's better or worse, because they can all be kind of fun and amazing and part of a serendipitous, like magical interplay of, well, let's
But
experience.
but
So
but
there's,
I have to challenge you again. I mean,
yeah,
I, because I get it what you just told me, right? And
yeah,
but the point is, it's not for me. I mean, when I wrote my poems or write a song, maybe I had a dream to can live for my creativity. Okay, I give you that. That might be my dream, but I hadn't so a dream about this one piece of creativity I created. I just created it because I feel to. I wanted to write a song about love. So that's why I wrote the Lover Blues. Or another song I wrote with my other band was about a shy boy and a shy girl, and how they can feel together, come together. And we performed that on stage with a woman and with me as the other side. So, but it was not about a dream. That it was just storytelling again, right?
Right.
So, and I mean, what you're telling me is then this is also something that I want to do too much by myself,
Hmm.
and just to be the artist. And when I'm talking with you, then I get this point, just be the artist, and then the producer can have the dream that he produces stuff and
Yeah.
make it successful. So that's in a different role, and I don't want to be in the role. I just want to be in the role of the creator. But I know right now I'm doing everything by myself. I'm doing content, I'm doing marketing, and so but maybe this is go to pure creativity and just be the artist. Mick Jagger was not thinking about what happened. He was just singing the song with his band, or the other musician, or you know what I mean?
I don't, well, because I do want to like, and seeing how they've been, is that true that Mick Jagger had no aspirations to be part of the world's of a big successful rock band?
I don't know what that for sure, but I just put it now in on the table and said, I know that musician not thinking that way. I mean, they're
Because
yeah,
like, yeah, because I don't know, I I think there's all types. I think there's, and maybe there's a little bit
yes,
of
definitely.
the big ones that end up being around for so long. I think there's a bias, a lot of this where you know, we always hear the big success stories because they have the biggest platform. And so we sometimes we hear these narratives, because like I went and saw Katy Perry a few months ago in Las Vegas, and you know, she even, you know, tells a story about, you know, as a little girl, or you know, that she, you know, she wanted to be a big singer, and there was a big thing, and how it was so amazing for her that she came from a family of entertainers. Like one of her aunts was like a showgirl at the Stardust Casino, which, you know, like 4 or 5 years ago got demolished, so they could
Yes,
build this resorts world, which is where Katy Perry has been performing for the last 2 years. So she's like, from, you know, from where my aunt was to basically be on the same spot. Like, you know, here it is. Like, this is my dream come true of like almost a family thing. Um, so I think there are the ones, but I think there are also some that, and I think that message is probably underrepresented because probably more often they're just doing their thing. They're not busy getting their thing out, of, and maybe that is one of the things, like you said, a messenger of just to create for the sake of creation without there necessarily needing to be a point or a purpose or an end goal, but just to do it and to enjoy the ride and the experience in the moment. And I think that's an
yes.
important as well.
And, and I mean, I don't know exactly because I never read the biography of Mick Jagger, but I read biographies of other musicians, and I know, I mean, and it doesn't matter what they have done. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I feel as a creator, and I mean, yeah, and be the messenger, spread love. I mean, that's the message, right?
Yeah.
And then make the people aware of who they are, and maybe that's the purpose. Just give them the chance, give them the keys to find themselves, and
Hmm.
make them aware if they're living in a jail or not. I mean, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, is there anything else on, 'cause we've been going for a little while. Anything on book writing or anything else you want to make sure we chat about? Or
Yeah, I mean, when I heard this webinar from this guy from Australia,
hmm.
then I mean, this becomes again a business because you listen for free to this YouTube, but then you
Hmm.
get an email and it said, "Oh, you can join us to a workshop and you have to pay 1,500 Australian dollars," right? So it
Yeah.
becomes a business again, right? So, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just make the comment. But to come back to writing a book, I mean, if I go here to my steps, what again, it's also the motivation to stay on it, right? I mean, how many people, and that was also mentioned in this webinar, how many people said, "Oh, I want to write a book," and they start, and then they never finished because they
Mhm.
couldn't keep it going. That's always the danger, right?
Yeah.
But so you have to establish a routine and just keep doing it, right? And I mean, set some timers by side. Some people write in the morning. I met someone who said he wants to write 3 books, and he finds the time in the morning. I
Mhm.
haven't published one of them, but he's still doing it.
Yeah.
I don't mention his name. And yeah, and then I think the creative process is very important. And then if you come to a point, then what you have done also, to get some professional help, get some reviewing, some editing, and then start the publishing and the marketing, right? So what do you think about that, what I just said?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, those are parts that need to happen for the book to be published. I guess um yeah, what in particular, or yeah.
What do you mean? I mean, I think, and again, I have to repeat it
I guess
again.
what's the
I'm
I
for
guess repeat the question.
no, okay.
Or
I will say something and then I repeat the question. So, um, I focus again on the creative process.
right.
So I don't want to think too far ahead. Just focus on the creative process. But at one point, when you think you're ready, then you should ask for someone to review it and then start the publishing process. So that's only what I wanted to say.
Oh, well, then that brings up the interesting question of, well, when am I ready? Uh,
Oh wow, yeah, interesting question. Yes. So I mean,
uh,
but again, I give you the answer. Only you decide. If you're the author, you decide. I have now everything put in, and now I want to get a second opinion, and then you start the process of publishing.
yeah. Well, because basically I would say that in some ways you're either never ready or you're always ready. So it's just sort of it's a deciding, and this is what I'm doing, and just like I'm going to move forward. And it's the yeah. And again, this is a little bit of like, what's the grander vision? Because there's a little bit of like, am I publishing because I want to publish what I want to publish, or do I want a reach and a scope, or I'm okay with it because the editor and the publisher, what their point of view is and what their purpose is going to sort of change what type of feedback they give you and why they're giving you certain feedback. Because there's because yeah, well, there's kind of like 3 ways to publish now, effectively, right?
Okay, okay. Number
First,
one,
number one we'll say is the totally self-published. You do it all, which is kind of what you do with your podcast, right? Like
right,
you control every element. You also pay for every element,
right,
right? Whether you're paying with money or you pay with your time. You,
right.
Then we'll go to then there's the other extreme, which is uh, which is the traditional publishing method, where it's a big publishing house. They have their staff editors. They have people on staff that are going to do the cover art, and they also have people that are going to do the marketing. They are a business, and they might pay you money, but that is because they are demanding that whatever you give to them is making them way much more money in return. And so they get to have some more control over, like, what you say, and my understanding is nowadays it's a little bit like they want to they want to you're more likely to get a traditional publishing deal if you already have a bunch of followers, because their thing is like, this is why like all the movies and things are, established intellectual properties. It's like why there's, it's another Marvel movie, another Star Wars thing, because it's like everybody knows that, and so they're going to go, oh, I know this thing. So it's sort of like most big books are written by people you already know. So it's like, well,
Right.
so either you got to kind of get known. Yeah. So it's basically you got to get known. And so it's like, well, if I could get known, then why don't I do my own thing? And so that's sort of like where then in between there's hybrid publishing, which is where it's like, I'm not going to do everything by myself, but I'm also don't want to give up control, or maybe I'm not known enough. So I'll work with somebody who's going to do some of the tasks, like some of the editing, help with some of the marketing, all these other things. And then then there ends up having to be some sort of like, they're putting in their time and effort, so they're going to want some money. And so there's different models of that where it's either you pay a flat fee or you pay people hourly, or there's probably ones where there ends up being like a revenue sharing thing. All sorts of things, right? When you have two extremes, then it can be anywhere in the middle. And so that's where it's like, well, what's sort of like the dream of how do we see this, book or whatever. And again, you can always sort of change it. Well, probably not if you go the traditional. If you start with the traditional, they own the thing. And, unless you had a really good lawyer, was able to make sure you still own the rights, it's like that's no longer your creative work, right? Like,
Yes.
what is it? Did Michael Jackson own the Beatles catalog for a while or something? I don't know. Like there ends up being these wacky things, or you're just like,
Yes.
what? The Beatles didn't own there, and then Michael Jackson, and then I don't know who owns it now that he's dead. But, yeah.
So okay, I don't want to go that. Probably the record label or the record management company of the Beatles owned that, and then at one point there was change and they sold it, and then Michael Jackson was a fan and he bought it at that time. But anyway, let's
Yeah.
go back. The question is now,
Yes.
what you actually did out of these three options.
Yeah.
You did the hybrid, you did the traditional, or you did all by yourself?
So I did the hybrid model because I've had enough experience sort of like writing and creating. So in some ways I look at it almost as sort of like the third thing I've gotten published. Because like my first thing was my dissertation for my
Yes,
PhD, which
definitely.
effectively I did all by myself, like I did everything effectively. Yeah, with some guidelines. And then I did another book project where I contributed a chapter of a book to like a compendium thing. This is called like Activate Your Life Volume 3. Like I wrote a chapter in that. And so this was, I was just given instructions, and I kind of got to see, and so I got a taste of like the complexities of what all goes into a book. And so then when did this session with international book writers, and they're like, yeah, there's all these decisions from like, well, what physical size? Like this is 6x9. Like, why pick 6x9? And it's like, there's reasons, but it could be anything. What font do you use? Do you use glossy or matte and all these other things? And there's a lot where it's like, to me, I'm like, I don't care. Just make it look like a freaking book. Like I don't, and so kind of like by offloading some of the decisions and some of the work, it's like, oh, I just focus on the thing that I care about. It's like, I don't want to have to worry about a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Whereas, if it was like a traditional publisher, they're going to care, but for their own purpose. And there's a little bit, because it's like, I've written another book, it's a fiction book. And for that, I would actually like to find more of a traditional, because that one, it's more like, I just want as many of the ideas to get to as many people as possible. And so that I would like, the scale and the help of another organization of this, like where they're vested in getting it out, where it's like, I don't need complete control. I don't care. I'm okay to let go of some, even more of the control, just so that a little bit of my message gets out to as many people. And so I think there's a little bit of that can be part of if we're talking about the baby, oh baby person that maybe that got sold and whatever, and then they were just a bit of a tool, but there could have been like, I got to create that thing, and then that's out there and fantastic. And just even if just a nugget of my little creativity is still out there in the world, that's beautiful. And so I think
Yeah.
that's yeah. So I
Ah,
don't think there's any right or wrong, better or
yeah.
worse. It's just sort of like, yeah, what do we want to put out there in the world? What do we want to experience?
Nos vemos.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to say bye-bye to someone. Sorry, I like to
Okay.
stop. Um, yeah, so you did the hybrid thing. Okay.
Yeah,
And
because
oh
like
no,
I don't want to have to pick the font. I don't want to have to figure
yeah,
out like
yeah,
what's how much spacing do I want in each of the margins? Like I don't care. Just make it not look bad, right? Like
yeah,
whereas some people like really like, oh, it's going to be an expression. I want to make sure that the T has a certain curly Q at the beginning, but only on the first page of the chapter. But then on the last page, it's going to have a following. Like you can, and if you care and it matters, then it matters, and then it probably does add something. But to me, I'm just like, that's not for me and for my audience of who I'm talking about. I'm like, I don't care. I don't think they're gonna care. Just make it look like a book. And I'm
yeah.
focusing on like my content. Um, yeah. And
Y-
so it just really depends on like what's the main focus, the thing like that. And again, like if your book is more of poetry, then there's like the aesthetics and everything like that might be really important, so that the whole like more self-published could be a thing, or it's become something that's so inspiring that then a traditional publisher is like, yes, and they're like, we get it, and this is the type of thing, and we want your little nuances, and we have the tools and resources to help get it in there the way you want. uh I don't know, there's just
Yeah, yeah, but
options.
I have to come back. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and also I understand that you wrote a PhD for your PhD. You have to create something. So I understand that too.
Hmm.
So you have experience. And in my case, I'm still in this process, in the process to get started and just create the content. And I don't want to worry further than that. I mean, because that's for me right now important, that I really motivate myself and put it together. And
Yeah.
then I go from there and make a decision to say, I, I like to work with other talents who maybe can make a nice outlook. I mean, from the graphics and whatever. Or if I go to myself, I just would put my logo, Mickey STT logo, on the cover of it. It's simple, but that would be consistent with my other content. But
Yeah.
I don't worry about this. I just have to get started, motivate myself, and put it together. And but I wanted to do this also in the way of podcasting. So I probably start with the one chapter and then I will use it as a monologue podcast. So that's the start.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think there's just so many ways to go about things, and I think one thing I've realized is I think there's can be two ways of going about some is like building upon what we've done and one step in front of the other, and then I think the other way and is the, oh well, let me start with the end vision in mind. What's the end state, and then let me work backwards from there. And I think they both work, and I think some maybe work better for other people or different things at different times. And I think it's kind of like this fun of this grand experiment of living life is like, all right, let's try some things out and see what we create and have some fun.
Exactly. And that's how I want to approach it. And then also I decided for every chapter I write a song. So that's the beginning. Chapter 0, it has already the title Frozen Morning. So I have this already. So I have pieces already
Yeah.
together. And,
And maybe your
and
book's
then
an audio book. Maybe I don't know, why not start something as an audio book, and then maybe it becomes a written book. I'm sure that's a thing, and if not, it should be. Maybe you have be the first like published audio book first, and then comes the written book. I don't know.
and,
Why not?
and I like it. And
I
I'm
think you
always
do whatever
someone,
you want. Yeah, whatever inspires you. I love it.
exactly. I always someone who does it not in the traditional way. I do it my own way. I
Yeah.
did it my way, right?
Yeah.
That's another song
I'm
from the
back to
50s.
yeah, back to Frank Sinatra and I love it.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. So I think we we had a great conversation, and we're over the time, and great,
Yeah.
Justin. And
Oh, can I
yeah,
let
so
people know how to find me?
yes, for sure, you always get my platform.
Okay. Yeah. So if people wanna find me, my name's Justin Wenck, Wenck. So I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Look for me at Justin Wenck, PhD. I'm also on YouTube. I have my own podcast as well called Engineering Emotions and Energy. Again, you search my name, the Wenck, Wenck, makes me really easy to find. And the book, again, it's, on Amazon and other places that you can find books online. And the audio book is also available. If you're on Spotify, I think it's available for free, and that's called Engineered to Love. So you can go to engineeredtolove.com to find that. So been real great to be here. And I do coaching, and yeah.
And he's amazing. I just let him know.
Aw.
So, listeners, thanks for joining us, and we had another very interesting session. And by the way, Justin has it covered in all the podcast channel. I just checked that. I love it. I just learned something from it. Again, thank you. See you. Hasta luego.